In warfare, we often employ a whole host of unorthodox methods to come out on top, turning icebergs into aircraft carriers, hurling disease-ridden dead bodies at the enemy, or in this case, putting something that many see as a nuisance in charge of destroying the opposition.
We're in the midst of World War II, and all the missiles that we use are not guided. They can't be directed to hit a specific target. They can only be flown over an area and then dropped. If we had a way to have that bomb go precisely to that location, it could be a game changer.
Noted Harvard psychologist and inventor B.F. Skinner has an epiphany one day while out for a walk. He happens to see a flock of pigeons, and it occurs to him, I could use their natural innate honing abilities to direct the bomb.
Skinner approaches the National Research Defense Committee with this plan. He codenames it Project Pigeon.
Using pigeons to hone in on the enemy sounds crazy, but is it crazy enough to work? The Defense Committee certainly thinks so.
Skinner receives 25 grand, or roughly $500,000 today, to figure out how to make a pigeon-guided bomb work. But Skinner has a plan. He thinks that in order to create a pigeon-guided missile, you need a pigeon-guiding cockpit. So Skinner creates a little cone that will go on top of a glide bomb, and in the cone will be a video screen.
Skinner places a gold electrode on the pigeon's beak. He then shows the pigeon video of targets like buildings and battleships on the screen.
Skinner's theory is this. If you train a pigeon to peck at an image of a battleship or a building and you reward them for it, they'll continue pecking at it. And after a while, they will no longer require the reward. They'll just keep pecking.
The images on the touch panel are linked to the guidance mechanism of the missile, so that when the pigeon pecks at one of those images, it's going to shift the missile one direction or another. So the pigeon actually is guiding the missile towards its particular target.
The system works almost perfectly, except for a slight issue with focus.
It can get distracted. It might get something wrong. It might send the bomb to the wrong target. So Skinner comes up with a great idea. Let's add democracy to our pigeon bombs. And thus, Skinner uses 3 pigeons, 3 separate screens, 3 separate beaks with 3 separate conduits on it. If 2 out of 3 pigeons pick the ship, the bomb's gonna steer in that direction. Turns out that pigeon democracy works every single time.
All they have to do now is stick a camera on the missile and let those pigeon pilots fly, right? Not so fast.
The system Skinner creates works very well, but the Army thinks it would be a little bit embarrassing to have pigeons guiding their missiles. So they choose not to go with the pigeons. But it's not a total loss. The screens that the pigeons were pecking on are the precursors to the screens we use every day in our cell phones. Interestingly enough, the pigeons are ahead of their time.
When recruiting birds to win the war doesn't fly, it's time for a new and just as outlandish plan. One that is designed to flush out the enemy.
In World War II, Britain comes up with this idea to attack Germany within. We're going to destroy their infrastructure. So the idea that they come up with is destroying dams. They will terrorize the population, but they'll also take out hydroelectric power, and it should have a negative impact on their manufacturing capacity.
An easy way to take out the dam would be to shoot a torpedo at it. But the Germans actually have torpedo nets, so that's off the table.
Dr. Barnes Wallace is an engineer, and he's got a plan to get something past the torpedo net and below, which would ultimately cause them to fail.
To Dr. Wallace, the answer is as easy as skipping stones.
You bounce the bomb across the surface of the water, It hits the dam, then drops down and explodes in just the right point to create maximum damage.
But a key element is that the bombs must have backspin. So backspin helps in several ways. One, it helps with the skipping off of the water, but also when it finally hits the wall of the dam, the backspin has the English effect, and it brings it down to the base of the dam, so it settles there.
With no idea on how to create the backspin, Barnes-Wallis does what many of us do when stumped at work. He hits the golf course.
He realizes something about the golf ball that may actually help with the bouncing bomb. And that is that the golf ball has these dimples.
Because a golf ball, the way the dimples work on it, it actually helps create the backspin.
Barnes-Wallis and his designers actually incorporate this into their bouncing bomb, even to the point where they're calling them the golf mines.
By July of 1942, it's test time. Will Dr. Barnes-Wallis's dimpled bomb have what it takes to take out a dam?
They find a place in Wales called Nontegro Dam, and that's where they first test the bouncing bomb. The RAF bomber takes off with the bouncing bomb slung underneath. But as part of the sling, there are belts which are already spinning the bomb backwards.
You have to spin it at exactly the right speed, 500 RPM. You have to be exactly the right height over the water, 60 feet. And you have to be traveling at exactly the right speed, 232 miles per hour. This is a very narrow window that these teams have to hit.
It skips across the river, hits the dam, sinks. 90 seconds later, the bomb works.
The confident Royal Air Force readies a fleet of bombers, eager to bounce havoc on the Germans. Enter the Dam Busters.
Just after midnight on May 17, 1943, the Dam Busters go into action. And the raid is led by a 24-year-old wing commander by the name of Guy Gibson. 133 men from Britain and her allies, flying in 19 bombers. The plan calls for them to hit 3 dams in Germany's Ruhr Valley, their industrial heartland.
Gibson is the first to release his bomb. It bounces 3 times on the surface of the water, but then falls short. One plane's bouncing bomb even bounces clean over the dam. The first 4 planes miss. The 5th plane coming in is Flight Lieutenant David Maltby. He's approaching the reservoir. Gibson circles back around so that he takes the fire on his plane so that Maltby can make it through, and Maltby releases his bouncing bomb.
And then suddenly the bomb explodes, concrete is crumbling, a huge column of water goes into the sky, complete success.
By the end of their mission, the Dam Busters take out 2 of the 3 targets, but they pay a high price.
Out of 133 men, 53 are killed on this raid. 3 of them end up in the hands of the Germans. But from a propaganda perspective, this was a huge shot in the arm for the Allied cause. And as a result, the Dam Busters go down in history as one of the most legendary squadrons ever to take to the skies.